Hello, class. Today I'm going to read to you in our Early Presidents, Chapter 1. Chapter 1, Washington becomes president. Home at Mount Vernon. The candles in the windows of George Washington's home at Mount Vernon shone brightly on Christmas Eve, 1783, as they did every Christmas Eve. This Christmas Eve, though, was different. 1 month earlier, the United States and Great Britain had signed a peace treaty ending the Revolutionary War. It's a really cool picture of his house in Mount Vernon. Soon after, at a dinner in New York, General Washington said his goodbyes to his fellow officers. Later, he presented Congress with his resignation as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. His work was done, he told Congress. He was retiring from public life forever, from the Army, from government, from all the duties that America had called on him to do. Washington had set an example for laying down his sword and surrendering his military authority to the people and the Republic. The Republic is a government in which people elect representatives to rule for them. Remember, that is our government. And when we say in the Pledge of Allegiance, and to the Republic for which it stands, that's the form of government we have. So he had given everything for our government that represented them. He had done something no one else in history had done. King George III said that if he did that, he would be the greatest man in the world. Americans called Washington the father of his country. They had a great deal of respect for their general. Some called him Cincinnatus, after the legendary Roman general. Cincinnatus was given power by the Roman Republic and then surrendered it. This was perhaps George Washington's greatest contribution to the founding of America. Now, after nearly 9 years of service to his country, Washington was free to return to his beloved Mount Vernon. As he rode up the circular drive to Mount Vernon on Christmas Eve, his wife, Martha, waited in the doorway to welcome him. At last, America's hero was home. When Washington told Congress he was leaving public life forever, he meant it. Have you ever noticed, though, how sometimes things happen to make you take back words like forever, never, and always? That is what happened to George Washington. First, Virginia asked him to serve as one of the state's delegates to the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. How could Washington say no? He had fought to give life to the young nation. But for the last 4 years, he could only watch helplessly as it struggled under the Articles of Confederation. He could not turn his back on his country. He had to take back that forever. He had to serve. Then the delegates at the Constitutional Convention gathered in Philadelphia in 1787. They needed a strong, steady leader to get them through the hard work ahead. They turned to George Washington to serve as chairman of the convention. Again, Washington agreed to serve. And now, with the Constitution ratified by the states, Washington knew that he would be called to serve again. As expected, he was everyone's choice to be the nation's first president. Once again, he knew he could not say no. Forever would have to wait. He would serve the Republic again to make sure the new nation got off to a good start. On April 16th, Washington said goodbye to Mount Vernon once again and set out for New York, the nation's temporary capital. There, his inauguration would take place. An inauguration is a formal ceremony at the start of a term of office. The trip from Mount Vernon to New York City took far longer than Washington expected. In every village and town he visited through, he had to attend speeches, parades, and dinners in his honor. Citizens lined the streets to cheer as his carriage passed by. On the country roads, men on horseback rode in front of, behind, and alongside Washington's carriage. The traffic filled the country air with dust as the journey became one long parade. After 8 days, Washington finally arrived in New York. Inauguration Day, April 30th, 1789, dawned bright and sunny in New York City. A crowd of thousands assembled in front of the building known as the Federal Hall. Shortly after noon, George Washington and a small group of officials stepped out on the balcony. Placing his hand on the Bible, Washington repeated the oath of office written in the new Constitution. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States, and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Because there were no loudspeakers in 1789, few people on the street below could hear the words. Nevertheless, they knew they had witnessed a historic moment. After Washington spoke the final words of the oath, an official called out, "Long live George Washington, President of the United States!" The crowd cheered wildly.